Jonathan Joss was born on December 22, 1964, in San Antonio, Texas, a city rich in Native American and Hispanic culture, and his life was deeply influenced by both his heritage and the spirit of the land around him. This influence wasn't just a backdrop, it was woven into the fabric of his being, shaping his worldview, his artistic inclinations, and ultimately his legacy. Growing up in a place where ancient traditions met modern complexities, Jonathan absorbed the nuanced rhythms of a city that was a crossroads of cultures, the vibrant colors of murals depicting Aztec gods, the resonant cadences of Spanish spoken on street corners, and the subtle echoes of Native American history in the very land beneath his feet all contributed to a profound sense of place and identity. Though he would later become best known for voicing John Redcorn, the stoic, long-haired Native American healer on the animated hit King of the Hill, Joss's real-life story was far more complex than the fictional world he helped bring to life. His journey from humble beginnings to a sudden and tragic end was a tapestry of quiet intensity, surprising decisions, and a deep, sometimes strange connection to identity and representation that transcended the superficial. Raised in a mixed heritage household, Jonathan identified strongly with his Native American roots, though he often noted that his background was complicated. His mother was Comanche, a proud and resilient nation with a deep history in Texas, and his father had German American roots, a dynamic that sometimes made Jonathan feel like he stood between two worlds. This duality wasn't a source of internal conflict in the way one might expect, but rather, as he would later articulate in interviews, it became a unique lens through which he understood people and roles. He saw the world in shades of gray, appreciating the complexities and contradictions that arise when different cultures intersect. Growing up in a neighborhood where cultural identity was often wrapped in pride and misunderstanding, Joss learned early on that who you are can be defined not just by blood or background, but by voice, belief, and community. These early lessons, etched into his consciousness through shared meals, community gatherings, and even playground debates, instilled in him a profound appreciation for authenticity and the power of narrative. He understood that identity was a performance, a story told and retold, and that his own voice, both literal and metaphorical, would be his most potent tool in shaping that narrative. Joss did not start out aiming to become an actor. In fact, his early life was more shaped by music and military structure. The discipline of the latter, an inherited respect for order and service, provided a grounding that contrasted with the fluidity of artistic expression he also pursued. After high school, he attended Texas State University, where he initially studied music and the arts. He possessed a deep, gravelly voice that was naturally resonant, almost an instrument in itself. He was drawn to instruments and performance, not so much for fame or the spotlight, but for the profound expression it offered, a way to channel emotions and stories that words alone couldn't capture. He learned to play several traditional Native American flutes, their haunting melodies becoming a private solace and a bridge to his ancestral heritage. At some point, however, that distinctive voice, so adept at conveying emotion through song, became his most valuable asset in an entirely unexpected field. A chance opportunity during college, filling in as a voice actor for a student film whose original talent had fallen ill, introduced him to a path he hadn't expected. He didn't look the part of a traditional actor, he once joked, with a self-deprecating grin. But he knew how to sound like anyone, how to inhabit characters with just the right pitch, tone, and silence, giving them life beyond the visual. This accidental discovery of his vocal prowess laid the groundwork for a career that would ultimately touch millions, albeit in a way he could never have fully anticipated. His early acting career was a patchwork of minor roles in local theater productions and low-budget TV shows, the kind of gritty, foundational work that sharpens skills and tests resolve. He often played background characters, or those with only a few lines, but even in these limited capacities, his distinct vocal quality and inherent authenticity began to register with casting directors. They were increasingly looking for authentic Native American voices, seeking to move beyond the often caricatured portrayals of the past. It was this growing demand, coupled with Joss's unique talent, that led him to an audition that would forever change his trajectory. That was how, in 1997, Joss landed what would become his most iconic role, John Redcorn on King of the Hill. The character was a fascinating paradox, a spiritual healer, a stoic romantic, and a caricature, all rolled into one. Redcorn's long, flowing hair, his calm demeanor, and his often cryptic pronouncements made him instantly recognizable, a counterpoint to the mundane suburban lives of the show's main characters. The role was not without controversy. Some critics and viewers debated whether Redcorn reinforced existing stereotypes of the noble savage or the mystical Indian. Joss was acutely aware of these criticisms. He understood the delicate balance between representation and caricature, particularly for a character designed for comedic effect within a largely mainstream animated series. Yet even with these valid concerns, he also felt a profound sense of duty to the role. He saw an opportunity to inject humanity and depth into a character that could have easily remained a flat, two-dimensional joke. He worked closely with the writers, often offering insights from his own heritage and experiences to give Redcorn greater dimension, empathy in his healing practices, pride in his heritage, unexpected flashes of sarcasm, and a quiet sadness that hinted at a deeper understanding of the world. He saw the character not just as comic relief, but as a subtle yet significant reflection of how Native American identity is often misunderstood, sidelined, or romanticized in popular culture. Through Redcorn, Joss aimed to portray a character who, despite his comedic framing, possessed an undeniable dignity and presence. Behind the scenes, Joss developed a reputation for being deeply invested in his work, far beyond simply delivering lines. He was a quiet advocate for accuracy and respect, often bringing cultural consultants to the show or offering his own corrections to the scripts when he felt a portrayal veered into insensitivity or inaccuracy. He understood that even in an animated comedy, the details mattered, especially when dealing with often marginalized communities. In private, he would sometimes laugh about how strange it was to be known by voice alone, a disembodied presence whose fame rested entirely on the sound he produced. He could go shopping, attend concerts, or walk through a crowded park without being recognized, unless he spoke. The anonymity was something he cherished, a shield against the often intrusive gaze of celebrity. Once, while waiting in line at a taco stand in Austin, a city he deeply loved for its vibrant art scene, he spoke to a fan who had recognized the distinctive timbre of his voice. The woman, eyes widening in disbelief, dropped her phone and shouted, "You're John Redcorn!" For Jonathan, these moments were both genuinely funny and deeply grounding. Fame had never been the goal. His motivation was always expression and connection. But he was undeniably grateful that his work resonated with people, that his voice had found a home in the hearts of millions, even if they didn't know the face behind it. This unique form of celebrity allowed him to engage with the world on his own terms, preserving a measure of privacy while still impacting public consciousness. As much as King of the Hill brought Joss into public consciousness, it wasn't his only work, nor was it the sole testament to his range and dedication. He actively sought out and took roles in a wide variety of TV shows and films, often gravitating toward characters that echoed his personal identity or allowed him to explore different facets of Native American experience. His filmography became a testament to his versatility and commitment to authentic representation. He appeared in the long-running Western drama Walker, Texas Ranger, lending gravitas to characters in a genre often fraught with simplistic portrayals. He then took on roles in more historically grounded narratives, such as Larry McMurtry's Dead Man's Walk and the Coen brothers' critically acclaimed remake of True Grit. In these projects, Joss was able to embody characters with a quiet strength and a sense of historical weight, often portraying individuals who were witnesses to the raw, untamed forces of the American frontier. His casting in Comanche Moon, another significant McMurtry adaptation for television, allowed him to more directly engage with Native stories and narratives, portraying characters from his own ancestral background with depth and nuanced understanding. This role in particular was a personal triumph, allowing him to infuse his acting with a profound sense of cultural heritage. Later in his career, he surprised many by appearing in the beloved satirical sitcom Parks and Recreation, where he portrayed Ken Hotate, the wise and media-savvy tribal leader of the fictitious Wamapoke Nation. Hotut was a master of political maneuvering, understanding the intricacies of bureaucracy and public relations far better than the earnest but often clueless politicians he dealt with. That role, though brief, showcased Joss's exceptional ability to blend comedy, dignity, and cultural critique in a single glance or perfectly delivered sentence. Hotut's dry wit and understated wisdom often served as a subtle commentary on the absurdity of modern politics and the enduring intelligence of indigenous communities. These diverse roles, from stoic healers to shrewd tribal leaders, underscore Joss's range and his commitment to expanding the scope of Native American characters in mainstream media. He didn't just play roles, he inhabited them, imbuing each character with a piece of his own spirit and understanding. Despite the successes and the increasing recognition, his career wasn't always smooth. The entertainment industry, notoriously fickle, presented long stretches where work dried up, leaving Joss to navigate the lean times. During these periods, he found himself doing voiceover gigs for commercials, the familiar, resonant voice now selling everything from trucks to banking services, or teaching acting classes to aspiring performers in Austin, sharing his hard-won wisdom about the craft. He once admitted in a candid interview that the entertainment industry was still largely uncertain about what to do with Native American actors, often relegating them to a narrow set of archetypes. We're always the wise man, or the ghost, or the guy who teaches the white hero something and dies. That's not enough, he said, his voice laced with a familiar weariness, but also unwavering conviction. He was vocal about wanting more complex, multidimensional roles for Indigenous actors, not just spiritual guides or silent warriors, but full, flawed people with their own aspirations, struggles, and triumphs. He believed that true representation went beyond mere visibility. It demanded depth, nuance, and the courage to portray the full spectrum of human experience within Native characters. This advocacy, often quiet and behind the scenes, became a significant part of his professional identity. Jonathan's personal life was more enigmatic, a testament to his deeply private nature. He never married, and while he had several long-term relationships, he meticulously kept most of them out of the public spotlight. Friends and close colleagues often described him as private, spiritual, and occasionally eccentric, traits that endeared him to those who knew him best. He once lived in a small, unassuming house near the edge of a nature preserve on the outskirts of Austin, a place where the sounds of the city faded into the rustling of leaves and the calls of nocturnal animals. He often insisted, with a twinkle in his eye, that he could hear coyotes talking to him, their howls carrying ancient messages that only he could decipher. This connection to the natural world was not an affectation, but a profound aspect of his spiritual practice. He regularly practiced meditation, finding stillness and clarity in the quiet moments. His home was filled with a cherished collection of antique flutes, each with its own story and haunting melody. He often traveled to reservations across the Southwest, not for public appearances, but to quietly work with youth programs, sharing his experiences and encouraging young people to embrace their heritage. He believed profoundly in using his platform, however modest it might seem to outsiders, to support Native causes and empower the next generation. These efforts were rarely publicized. He preferred to make an impact through genuine engagement rather than performative gestures. It was common for him to speak at high schools without cameras or fanfare, simply sharing his story and urging young Native students to take up space in places that once excluded them, to let their voices be heard in classrooms, boardrooms, and artistic venues. There were strange stories too, moments that seemed to defy conventional expectations and hinted at the unique lens through which Jonathan viewed the world. In one instance, during the filming of a small independent Western, Joss walked off set, leaving the production in a sudden scramble. The director had attempted to change a character's tribal affiliation for mere convenience, a decision Joss found deeply disrespectful. "We don't just mix and match identity," he reportedly told them, his voice calm but firm before making his exit. The production, initially defiant, tried to replace him, but after immediate backlash from Native consultants and a few media outlets who caught wind of the incident, Joss was re-invited to the project, this time with full creative input, a victory he accepted with quiet satisfaction. In another memorable story, recounted by a former castmate from a regional theater production. Joss once stopped a live performance mid-scene, much to the confusion of the audience and his fellow actors. He later explained, with a solemn intensity, that he had seen an ancestor standing at the edge of the stage, a spectral presence that compelled him to pause. The audience, thinking it was part of the experimental play, applauded the unexpected dramatic beat. But those who knew Joss knew he wasn't pretending. He had a deep, unshakable belief in the spiritual world, in the enduring presence of those who came before him, and this belief profoundly informed both his acting and his daily life, blurring the lines between the tangible and the unseen. Over the years, as his reputation for authenticity and integrity grew, he naturally became an unofficial mentor to younger Native American actors, navigating the often treacherous waters of Hollywood. People like Zahn McClarnon, known for his powerful performances in Fargo and Reservation Dogs, and Amber Midthunder, the breakout star of Prey, mentioned him as someone who opened doors or gave quiet, invaluable advice. He didn't have the glaring spotlight or the massive PR machine of mainstream Hollywood stars, but within his community, among his peers and those he inspired, he was deeply respected, a quiet force of change, a steady hand guiding the way for others. He understood the unique challenges faced by Indigenous performers and offered practical advice on navigating auditions, negotiating contracts, and perhaps most importantly, staying true to one's self and one's heritage in an industry that often demands conformity. His mentorship was less about grand pronouncements and more about leading by example, demonstrating how one could achieve success while maintaining integrity. His final years were a blend of calm and burgeoning creativity, a period where he seemed to be consolidating his life's experiences into new artistic endeavors. He had recently begun working on a semi-autobiographical film, writing it himself, a passion project that had been simmering for years. It was to be a blend of fiction and memory, weaving in the potent legends he heard as a child with the often surreal stories from his time in the entertainment industry. This film was an opportunity for him to tell his own story, in his own voice, without the filters of network executives or studio demands. He was also in talks with a prominent podcast network to create a series exploring Native myths and oral traditions, told with modern framing and his distinctive voice acting. The idea was to make these ancient stories accessible and engaging to a new generation, to ensure their survival and relevance. He seemed energized by these projects, friends said, more open than ever to sharing his full self, his complex heritage, and his unique worldview with a wider audience. There was a sense of a creative culmination, a feeling that he was finally bringing all the threads of his life and talent together. Then came the night of June 1st, 2025. The news that Jonathan Joss had been shot and killed in San Antonio left fans, friends, and industry colleagues in shock, a collective gasp that reverberated through the tight-knit communities he had touched. The details of his death were painfully, tragically ordinary. An argument with a neighbor, escalating tensions over what local police initially described as a minor property dispute, and then, in a terrifying flash, a weapon drawn, followed by gunfire. Yet the outcome was anything but ordinary. A man whose entire life had been about voice, about dialogue, about culture, about presence, was silenced in an act of senseless, brutal violence. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Here was someone who had spent his career trying to bring understanding and visibility to a people too often overlooked, whose artistry had been dedicated to bridging divides and illuminating narratives, taken down by a flash of anger and bullets in his own community in the very city that had shaped him. The abruptness and senselessness of it were almost unbearable for those who loved him. Tributes poured in from around the country and beyond, a tidal wave of grief and remembrance. Former co-stars, producers, tribal leaders, and countless fans all shared stories, each one a testament to the impact Jonathan had made. Some remembered the powerful timbre of his voice, how it could convey so much with just a subtle shift in tone, how it commanded attention and instilled a quiet dignity in even the most caricatured characters. Others recalled the day he visited their school, speaking not as a celebrity, but as a humble elder, or how he quietly donated to a cultural preservation fund, asking for no recognition. Social media platforms, usually awash in fleeting trends, were saturated with clips of John Redcorn scenes, poignant interviews where Joss spoke about his heritage, and obscure moments from his lesser-known projects. People shared stories about how Jonathan had helped reshape how they saw Native American characters on screen, not just as background figures or simplistic tropes, but as beings with agency, with soul, with their own complex internal lives. His death resonated as a profound loss not just for the entertainment industry, but for the ongoing movement towards authentic Indigenous representation. His death also sparked broader, more urgent conversations about community conflict, the pervasive shadow of gun violence in America, and the often unspoken mental health challenges that can simmer just beneath the surface in neighborhoods across the country. The tragic circumstances forced many to confront the harsh realities that can erupt even in seemingly peaceful communities. But more than anything, it reignited interest in his life's work. The quiet, consistent push toward representation, the tireless advocacy for nuanced portrayals, and the strange, beautiful, often misunderstood path he walked. His legacy, though tragically cut short, became a renewed call to action for greater understanding and respect. Jonathan Joss was not a household name to everyone, his celebrity often residing in the unique niche of voice acting and culturally specific roles. But to those who knew his work, who recognized the gentle power of his voice, the quiet dignity of his portrayals, and the unwavering conviction behind his efforts, he was unforgettable. His life was filled with purpose, tinged with a beautiful mystery, and marked by a sense of conviction rare in the often superficial world of entertainment. He may have started as a distinctive voice on a popular cartoon, a character known for his long hair and spiritual advice, but he became something much deeper and more enduring: a storyteller, a culture keeper, a mentor, and a powerful symbol of a voice that, even in silence, would not fade. His spirit, like the ancient stories he cherished, would continue to resonate, echoing through the lives he touched and the narratives he helped to shape. His passing was not an end, but a profound punctuation mark, reminding everyone that some voices, once heard, are never truly silenced.